Ethereum deck is similar to a red-green kind of dredge video, poorly lacked. We've got Quag Feast, which is a new one from April.
And we don't have no identity, we don't have this, we don't have that.
What we're doing is we're actually trying out these different things, and then we're continuing on. It's like a tree, but rather than being an infinite tree.
What is it, if your theory is correct and we are a part of the simulation, how do you define consciousness then? What is that?
Well, again, I think it depends on if you go the RPG route or the NPC
Let's
route.
go the RPG route, because that's what you seem to more believe.
Yeah, I tend to lean in that direction, but there's a lot about AI and the other side. But in that side, I would say consciousness then stems from outside the physical body. Right? So if in the NPC world, it's closer to what the materialists view, is that consciousness stems from the physical body, from the neurons. And if you just put together enough neurons, you'll have a conscious entity. And in the NPC world, that's it. There's no outside existence. If it looks conscious, it's just the code running. In the RPG world, consciousness exists fundamentally outside the body, but gets attached to the body. So the awareness is actually coming from the player, less so.
But meaning, though, because of that extension, we therefore live in this world, this reality, whatever this is, where we have free will, like we talked about earlier with me tossing that. It's just controlled by us from another place physically. And therefore, there is also this concept of good versus evil. It's not just free man's game, it is what it is. It's like you talked about with the near-death experiencers, where they have to experience all the things they did to other people, meaning there is this emotional understanding of what either was good or bad that they did to others to try to understand those experiences that they put upon the world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the purpose of this world is Grand Theft Auto. Right?
I agree.
And I think that the Life Review is the best example of that, right? And I feel like all the religions were trying to express that in the Golden Rule and Karma, in the Scroll of Deeds and Judgment Day. All these religions were trying to express it in a way that it could be understood. So I believe perhaps some people do come in and they have a choice. They have a choice whether to do something that's more evil or good, and they end up choosing the wrong thing. And that ends up being disastrous for certain other people. But if you think about what makes an interesting movie, I mean, there has to be somebody doing that in the movie. Otherwise, it ends up being not as exciting, not as interesting.
There's no happiness. That's the shitty thing about the world. Like, there's no happiness without evil existing in the world. You don't know what euphoria is if you don't know the lowest of the lows. You know what I mean? One, it's the yin and the yang. It does have to exist. And I hate to say that. Like, I don't want to see wars, genocide, and shit happening. But there is the phoenix that can rise from the ashes of those things that makes life beautiful.
Yeah, and you wonder if that's part of the design of the game itself. I mean, I talked about Swami Yogananda earlier, and he used to say, ceaseless joy is not the nature of this world. Right? We're not always in a divine state and everything's great. He said, you have to get ready for the beatings and batterings of the world. basically every day. And maybe that's what makes this place special too, is that there is some of that, but we're still able to make choices. We're still able to do what we might consider to be good things, and I think that's part of the experience that we choose. We choose to have these situations where we can play different types of roles, and then we can make choices, and then we have to review those choices later. And then there are consequences, whether it's, depending on who you believe, whether it's go back in and you have to do another life and you have to experience what it's like, or from the life review, you can basically decide what happens afterwards. So it really does bring this idea of the not just philosophy and science, but also religion.
If it is a multiverse, do you think that there is, I don't even want to use the word karma here because I don't know that, I don't want to put any religious context on it. I just want to put, like, I guess the physical world context, but someone could die in this multiverse and be reborn in another dimension of the multiverse, or still exist in another plane. So two different things there. It could either be they die and they're reborn somewhere else as the same person or someone else on a different time plane, either one, or they die in this, maybe I got cancer in this multiverse, or in this dimension, and in the other multiverse I just kept living.
Right, well that is a aspect of the multiverse itself, which is that every time there's a choice or a decision, it branches off a whole nother universe. And so there have been lots of great stories about this, right, in science fiction, where, you know, one person has died in one reality, but they're still around, you know, in another reality. Or if you look at the Spider-Man movies right across the Spider-Verse, where, you know, you have a different person who's Spider-Man. Rather than Peter Parker, it's Miles Morales, is it? And versus Uncle Ben versus somebody else being alive. And so where I came out with it was closer to this Philip K. Dick idea of the multiverse, where what we're doing is we're actually trying out these different things, and then we're continuing on. It's like a tree, but rather than being an infinite tree, the tree gets trimmed based upon these different possibilities. And then we go forward, and then we do it again. So maybe we're constantly sampling these possible futures, perhaps one where you die and one where you don't, and then we choose to go through the experience, you know, in that one.
There was the other concept that Michio Kaku talks about, where he's like, you could be in this room and it's like a finely tuned radio, right? If you and I are sitting here right now, but if it was just tuned ever so slightly to the right, there could just be dinosaurs walking around on the ground right now. And that would be an element of a different version of this multiverse. Do you think that makes sense with what you theorize?
Well, I think there's an element of it that could make sense, which is that we have multiple versions of reality running at the same time. And so this is where we tie the multiverse idea to quantum computing, right? In quantum computing, you don't necessarily run things in serial, one after the other. You can run them in parallel. So these things there could be multiple versions of the Earth running on the same computational system, if you will. And these are the other possibilities. But then the question comes into play, which one are you tuned into?
Yes.
Why are we tuned into this one and not that one? And I think that's where, you know, you again have to get back to this question of what is reality, but also what is consciousness? I mean, some folks think consciousness is the thing that chooses. I mean, that's what Max Planck, people like John von Neumann, and Eugene Wigner, who, you know, has a lot of interesting physics experiments, but he was with Leo Szilard when they went to Einstein to get him to write a letter to Roosevelt about the atomic bomb. But a lot of these guys, you know, thought that consciousness was playing some fundamental role. So is it that we are choosing to tune into a particular version of events, and then there's this question of, are we all choosing to be in the same version or not? And so in computer science, we have this thing called caching.
Wait, we're all choosing to be in the same version?
Yeah, like are we both in the same version of the multiverse? And we are at the moment. It seems like we are, right? At the moment. But if you tune to another version of yourself, it's doing something else. So why are we tuned in here right now at this moment in time?
I guess, I mean, my only thought would be that if I'm experiencing the same thing you are, this goes back to your level 2 verse 25 thing though.
Yeah.
because it's like maybe we are seeing different things. But if we can agree right now, we're seeing the same things. There's a TV there with like the
Yeah.
Earth on it. Over here, we got 2 pictures and then one in the middle right there.
Yeah.
Right. Like if we can agree on that, then I guess we are. Is that enough to be able to say we have our avatars are chosen to be in the same spot?
Yeah, I would say there's enough commonality there. So the way it works with video games is you have a synchronization going on at the server, and the server is synchronizing what different people are seeing. And if they're in the same space, they generally see the same thing, except for in these weird cases where you have to. There's also something called the anthropic principle. I don't know if Michio Kaku talked with you about that.
He may have.
The basic idea is that there are so many parameters in science, like constants, that seem like they're fine-tuned for life and for life in the universe, like our kind of life.
Yeah.
Like if the parameters were off by like 2% or 3% or 1% in some cases, the planets would fly apart.
Yes.
Galaxies would never. And so, what are the possible reasons for that? And the possible reasons for that are intelligent design, that it was designed, or the multiverse idea, which is that many different universes were tried out. And this gets back to this is why I like a computational multiverse. What we do in computer science is because we assume things aren't infinite, we have to prune the tree so that it doesn't go infinite. And so that whatever this simulation is about, all the versions where you couldn't have life were trimmed. So those are no longer running. That basically the versions that run are the versions that life could be. So we're constantly pruning the tree in order to get that. Now, if you look at the 2 most popular interpretations of quantum mechanics, the Copenhagen interpretation, which is probability wave, it collapses down to 1, and that's why we're seeing the one where the cat is alive or dead. And then you have the multiverse idea, which is that the cat is alive in one universe and the cat is dead in another universe. Now, there's problems with both of these from a physics point of view. This is why they haven't been able to agree on what's really going on. And the problem with the first one is nobody knows how this collapse actually happens. It's like magic, right? It goes from multiple possibilities to one possibility. There's no mathematical way to define it, unless you bring in some kind of outside observer or consciousness or something. Physicists don't like to do that if they can avoid it. And on the other side, the problem with the multiverse is it's considered to not be parsimonious. Okay, meaning it's not efficient. Why? Because you're creating a new physical universe not every time I snap my fingers, every like nanosecond, or so every time there's a quantum decision, there's a new universe that's found out. So it ends up being very inefficient, and you're just creating an infinite number of universes all along the way.
And that goes back to your computational problem.
Yeah, so computational universe solves this problem in the sense that what does it mean for there to be a multiverse? It just means you run the simulation over and over again. What does it mean to say there's a probability wave? And we're in one of those. There was a physicist named Amit Goswami who wrote a book called Conscious Universe, and I remember him talking about this years ago. He said, well, the reason there's a probability wave of all the things that might happen, because it's not a real probability wave. What it's saying is if you ran the process multiple times, this is what would happen. Because you can't have a probability if you run something only once.
That's right.
In fact, the probability itself comes from one of these French mathematicians, I forget which one, who they were looking at dice, and they were trying to predict what's the outcome of this game. And he said, well, if you roll the dice, there's 6 possible futures. And that's what he called it, possible futures of the die. And then therefore we have 1 of 6 possibilities, right? So it all came from this game playing idea of saying that there are these possible futures that are out there. But the only way you can know that is by running the dice a number of times before you're able to do that. And so with a computer, you can do that. You can run the same thing several times. And so it provides, in my opinion, a middle ground between the Copenhagen interpretation and the multiverse idea, because you don't need infinite. You can prune the tree as you go in the multiverse idea, and you can solve some of these different problems. And it gets back to what does it mean for there to be a probability wave in the first place, and for it to collapse. It means that you're rendering one of those possibilities at the current moment. So it provides a bridge between the two. I mean, not a mathematical one, but more of a conceptual.
I know.
Let's get right into it. Robert, your challenge. What is your biggest challenge with the religion of Islam? What's your biggest challenge with it?
You mean the biggest difficulty I see in it?
I would say your biggest difficulty because I see it from two different places. Like one, there's faith, meaning none of us have gone to heaven to see what heaven's going to look like. We're all taking a risk. All of us here are taking a risk. Either we're all going to be right, either we're all going to be wrong, or either one of us is going to be right, meaning one group's going to be right and the other's going to be wrong. But we don't know. That's faith, that's prayer. Of course, we've had great experiences in life to say, I had a connection with God. I had a moment with ... And then that's individual to us, right? So to me, it's faith, it's religion, it's enemies, it's common enemies, it's the challenges that's going on in the world, specifically with America as being for the longest time the greatest country in the world. What is affecting that? And then there's a few other things that we'll talk about into as well. So, but for me, it's more from the standpoint of when you said you've read the Quran dozens of times, you've studied it, you've written about it, you've talked about it. Even I think the government used two of your books in 2011 that Wire talked about, right? I don't know what the two books were. I think one of them was about Prophet Muhammad and So your background, you've been in this world. What is your biggest challenge and differences with the religion of Islam?
Well, probably the main thing is the sanctification of violence and the idea that God will bless and even calls upon the believers to commit acts of violence under certain circumstances. Like Rashid here is an ex-Muslim, and so under Islamic law, as it's traditionally and classically formulated, he would be put to death. Muhammad said, anybody who changes his religion, kill him. And it's still the position of all of the schools of Islamic jurisprudence, Sunni and Shia, that the apostate should be put to death. Now, obviously, this is not something that means that every apostate has to always go around watching himself. You have to have somebody who's willing to do that. But those who do it, they think, well, now I have done something that Allah has commanded, and He will bless me for doing it. And me, myself, because I was standing up for the freedom of speech, 2015, Pamela Geller and I put on in Texas a Muhammad art exhibit and cartoon contest. And it was actually, we featured a lot of classic Shiite Persian art depicting Muhammad, as well as contemporary art that was from a more critical standpoint. And a couple of jihadis came from Phoenix, key members actually of the Islamic Community Center of Phoenix. One of them was featured in a recruitment video for them, and they tried to kill us. And so I actually would be also under a death sentence just for drawing Muhammad and for sponsoring people who do, which I did not in order to cause gratuitous insult, but to defend the freedom of speech and freedom of expression, which is the foundation of any genuinely free society.
Daniel, what would you say to me? What's your response to that?
Yeah, so just a few points here. Number one, it's interesting how we want to talk about Islam as a religion, but the religion is 95%, like what Jake mentioned. It's about worshiping God, being devoted to a righteous way of life, loving your neighbors, taking care of your parents. That's what 95% of Islam is about. Yes, there are criminal punishments, which we're going to discuss. There is conquest, there is war theory, there's all of this in Islam. But it's interesting how when a conversation is about Islam, we focus on that 5% instead of the 95% of what Islam is about. We don't see this kind of double standard with like Christians. So if you have someone like Matt Walsh is a traditional Christian. There's slavery in the Bible, there's punishment for blasphemers in the Bible, there's killing of heretics in the church tradition. There's no discussion of that with Matt Walsh, right? Or Ben Shapiro. There is killing of blasphemers in the Hebrew Bible. There is, punishment for apostasy in the Talmud. There's no discussion of that with Ben Shapiro. You can talk about, other values, and that's what the discussion focuses on. But the Islamophobic narrative is just lasering in on these specific topics, which is fine. We can discuss that, but I just want to note the double standard. So the other framing of this whole discussion that I want to put out here, though, is that I'm wondering, like this standard of, there should be no punishment for blasphemy, for example. Let's just put that out there. There should be no punishment for mocking and insulting a religion, attacking people's values, is that coming from a Christian perspective? Is that coming from a tradition? Is that coming from the church tradition? Is that coming from the Bible? Because when we look at the Bible, we see in Leviticus, we see in Deuteronomy that blasphemers should be put to death. Even if you entice, the Bible says, if you entice, like your son or your daughter or your wife entices you to worship other than God, then have no mercy. Put them to death without due process mentioned, without any kind of court or tribunal. The husband or the father should just immediately put them to death without mercy. That's what the Bible says. So when Robert wants to criticize Islam, I'm wondering, is that criticism on the basis of the Bible? Is that on the basis of the church tradition? Or is this a liberal, secular, modernist critique of Islam? So I want to know, am I debating or discussing with two Christians or two atheists or two liberal secularists? Like, that's a clarification that we need.
Yes. This is very important clarification, and there are a couple of distinctions that have to be made. One is all of your examples from Christianity are from Old Testament law, which if you had studied Christianity, you would know there's no sect of Christianity, no school of Christian thought, no tradition within Christianity that holds that Old Testament law applies to Christians for all time. As a matter of fact, it never did apply. Even in Judaism, after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, the rabbis redefined Judaism so that even they don't teach that those punishments have ongoing validity. So you're talking about something that nobody in mainstream Judaism or Christianity thinks is valid today versus something that unfortunately all too many Muslims do think is valid today. And the bringing up of ancient historical wrongdoing is all very well, and there's certainly a place for that. I've got no interest in denying any of the misdeeds of Christians throughout history. But the problem that we have in Islam is that these passages of the Quran that are problematic, passages of Muhammad's traditions that are problematic, they are still considered to be enforced by very large numbers of Muslims, such that all the major terrorist groups around the world are Islamic groups. And you don't have any Christian terrorist groups saying Jesus is Lord and blowing people up. There's a reason for that. And the reason has to do with the interpretative traditions in both religions.
Go ahead, please. Yeah, so I would ask Robert a very simple question that I think gets at what the real issue actually is. Do you believe that it's inherently immoral for an apostate to be put to death?
Do I believe that it's inherently immoral
Yes.
for an apostate?
Is it inherently immoral?
Well, I know this is some kind of trap, but in any case,
No, it's
I
just,
don't
I'm just
see any
looking for
reason.
honesty on your part, that's all.
You can always have honesty on my part. Everything I tell you is the truth.
Okay. So
And the fact is that, yeah, I don't know. I tell you the truth, I
you
haven't
don't know
thought about it.
Wow. Okay,
But-
you haven't thought about it. Well, you're writing
Yeah.
all these books on Islam,
So how are
talking
you
about
criticizing
apostasy,
Islam?
Right.
and you don't even know if this is inherently immoral. That's quite shocking,
No,
brother.
I would say that I don't think that it's moral to put the apostate to death.
So it's
But
immoral.
as it comes to my books about Islam, I'm just reporting on what Islamic clerics and the Islamic tradition teaches about passages like when Muhammad says if somebody changes his religion, kill them. So
Yeah, but-
if you look, for example, in chapter 4, verse 89 of the Quran, in the critical Quran, where it says if they turn renegade, then come and kill them wherever you find them, then I give Islamic authorities who actually say that this should be done. And that is something people need to know. Now, whether you're talking about in the ideal society, you have apostates put to death, I don't think so, because I believe in the freedom of conscience and the idea that of the dignity of the human person, which is a Christian concept that's not in Islam. You have in Islam, the unbelievers are the most vile of created beings, according to
Well,
chapter
one issue at
98,
a
verse
time.
6.
One issue at a
Yeah,
time.
So on. No, this
Let's
is
not-
all,
I still
let's
didn't
talk
get an
about
answer
this.
if it's
I understand,
Is it
but this
inherently
is all the
immoral?
same issue. Whereas in
Is it
Christianity,
inherently immoral?
all people are equal in dignity as made in the image of God. And so in that sense, I would say, no, I don't think it is.
So is it inherently immoral, yes or no?
Can I
Yeah.
answer that?
It is.
It is.
So when the Bible, when Deuteronomy, since you like to quote the Quran, when the Bible says this in Deuteronomy 13:6, if your brother, the son of your mother, your son of your daughter, the wife of your bosom, or your friend, who as your own soul secretly entices you, saying, quote, Let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers, of the gods of the people which are all around you, near to you or far from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. You shall not consent to him or listen to him, nor shall your eye pity him, nor shall you spare him or conceal him, but you shall surely kill him. Your hand shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hand of all the people. And you shall stone him with stones until he dies, because he sought to entice you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. So all Israel shall hear and fear, and not again do such wickedness as this among you. So let me finish.
Oh, I get your point.
So when your loving God, Jesus Christ, who you believe is God, who revealed the Old Testament and revealed this as a law for the people, and you said that it's inherently immoral for the punishment of apostasy to be death, then you are charging your own God and supposedly loving Jesus with immorality.
Not at all.
If you don't see that contradiction and hypocrisy,
It's not in the
it
least.
really do much for you.
Well, it's not in the least contradictory or hypocritical, because that is God actually ordering something
Was
directly.
God wrong for that?
Now, the question here is whether the Muslims, when they put people to death for apostasy today, are likewise authorized by God in some direct manner. Now,
Well, that's
obviously,
what matters.
yes, the question
And
is,
it's not inherently immoral. It just matters what is the correct religion and whether or not
well, see,
God.
distractions. Let's make this quick. I'm tired of your secrets. I really don't have time for you. You won't be outsmarting me.
That's just God can vote. Yeah. That's a mana problem. I should have swept that bitch.
What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys continuing to rock with me. Donald Trump is the greatest president of our lifetime, and it may not even be close. He may be, at the end of his term, the greatest president in history, and I'm going to tell you why. For me, there's some things specifically that is very, very meaningful that shows you that a person has no secrets, nothing to hide, and they actually working on the behalf of the American people. And this is the first time, this is the first point. This is the first time that we've seen a president this transparent. We've never been behind the scenes and behind the curtain. And of course, you're gonna have raging liberals mad at every single thing, and they're gonna find something wrong. And even though they've never ever seen transparency from a president ever, including Obama, including Biden, including the Bushes, including Clinton, including everybody. They've never seen this level of transparency ever in history. They will complain and say, oh, this should have happened behind closed doors. No, we need to see it. We need to see the truth. That way, when you see Trump say something like, well, Zelensky is acting like a dictator, You don't understand why. You know, because politics for a long time has just basically ruling with a hidden hand, right? What you present to the people and all of the smiles and all of that stuff will allow for you to be able to steal the whole world. What you present to the people will allow for you to steal the whole world. And what we haven't had, especially in this social media era, is this level of transparency. He has been more visible every single day. He has been more visible than anybody, including our last administration, who largely operated in the hidden shadows, and we didn't even see Kamala Harris come out of the woodwork, and we haven't heard her speak until she decided that she wanted to jump in the ring and run for president of the United States of America. J.D. Vance, he's showing you signs of leadership, and I guarantee you, after 3-4 years, he's going to be even more prepared to become president of the United States of America after Trump decides to leave office. But watching that whole interaction with Zelensky yesterday was refreshing. It was eye-opening, and I can appreciate it because it also showed why, number two, we need masculinity inside of the White House. And as long as I'm alive, I will do everything in my power, personally, and I know the women are going to hate this, I will do everything in my power, unless the guy is just so incompetent that he just can't even stand. I would have preferred to have Biden over Kamala Harris in a second term. I don't want a woman to ever become president. And that's not a slight at women. It just means that you need a certain type of person. You need a certain type of personality inside of the White House. And masculinity has absolutely been discounted, but it's one of the most important things that we have inside of our culture, inside of our society, and inside of America is masculinity. Men are largely unappreciated, but they should be. And if we didn't exist in the capacity that we do, and I'm not talking about simps, you guys would absolutely get ran roughshod over. We've civilized society so much to where you don't believe that you need it, but you wouldn't exist without it. We've civilized society so much to where you don't believe that you need it, but you wouldn't exist without it. And can you imagine a Kamala Harris sitting there? I mean, Biden was bad, but Kamala Harris would be the worst. Could you imagine if a Kamala Harris or a Hillary Clinton or something like that is sitting in front of a sitting president, even a weak one, even one that whose country has no power at this point and is depending on you? That's how they continue to police America out of $350+ billion to this date. The reason that they got so much money and they've made no inroads into ending this war prior to Trump actually coming into office, and he hasn't even been in office for 40 days, is because he was running a
This is really important story here, actually. This story could have led to a lot of lives being lost. You dig? I had one female country girl from eastern rural Pennsylvania, country girl, and I took her to my neighborhood, and for the homie was throwing a birthday party in LA, and I told her, I said, look, we're going into the club, okay? This is the club. There's a bunch of men here in LA are aggressive. You heard me? They gonna come holler at you. Look, they gonna be sliding left and right. They might slide when I'm there. They damn sure gonna slide when I'm not there. Don't say shit to nobody, okay? Don't say nothing to nobody. I don't care who it is. If they're not with me, if it's not my man whose birthday it is, or any of our people, don't say nothing to nobody. Because listen to me. If I'm not around, my people will look at you as my problem. If somebody starts talking and finessing, just you entertaining the conversation is gonna be a problem, because one of my wolves is gonna pull up. There's gonna be an issue, I promise you, okay? Don't say nothing to nobody. You understand? Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand. They say something, I don't say anything. Okay, great. Now, if you've ever been in a country town in America, these are the friendliest on earth, right? You can't walk anywhere in a country town without being striking up a conversation. These are some conversation having. You see a country person, you be at the stop sign, like, no, you go. You'd be in their car, no, you go. Like 10 minutes 3 items. They there for 9 hours, slapping fives and shit, having barbecues and shit with strangers. You know, that's there in the backyard, having a barbecue, like they yelling over to the neighbors, like 5 acres down. Hey there! John, why don't you and the kids come by and get some ribs? Friendliest on earth. Anyways, so we in LA, right? We come into the function. My people got a man's birthday party. I go through and introduce her to my wolves. These my wolves. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. All right, cool. Bad little broad. Pale little thing, long, dark bangs, long hair all the way down to the wagon, super slim thing, pretty in the face. We talking model level, right? I sit her down somewhere. I go to the bathroom. I say, come on, you got LA. You're not fake LA. This is real LA. We in the club, right? So there's a bunch of in my section. Wolves. You're gonna be real gangster. I go to the restaurant. I come back. I'm like, man, 25 feet away from it. As soon as I come out the bathroom, Latino cat already owned it. He was gaming, and it's funny too because I'd seen him before. And you already know what it is. If you was a real savage, you'd have approached her when I was right there and said, "What's up?" I go to the bathroom. That's some whole shit. But me, I'm not gonna pop off a situation, because somebody trying to holler at a broad. That's what he's supposed to do on the low low, right? I'm not gonna pop off a situation. So I'm walking over there, and as I'm walking over there, I see 3 of my wolves observe this going on, and 3 of them go over there. So 3 of them fell over there and start pressing the Latino dude, right? This is before I even get there. We in a crowded club. I see them 3 go over there. They start pressing oh boy, leave. And then I see her, and her face just starts looking like super shocked and spooked. They telling her to get up and come closer to where everybody is in the section. She a country girl. She ain't never been in the club in LA. She ain't used to being next to a bunch of niggas turned up. So then I'm walking over. They escort the broad over back to me, and they're like, yeah, bro, trying to slide at her. So I already know what it is. And she's looking at me like, oh my God. And then I like take her over to the side. I was like, hey, do you remember those directions, that pep talk I gave your ass at the beginning? You remember any of that shit? She was like, yeah, like don't say anything to anybody. I was like, yeah, like unless it's somebody that I know, right? She's like, yeah, correct. I was like, right. So have you noticed that all my are black, and that was talking to you was Latino? Like that's an easy way to figure out. Like, is he here with us? Oh, that was an easy way to figure that shit out, wasn't it? She's like, yeah, like I know he wasn't with you, like he wasn't like trying to say anything or anything like that. What do you mean he wasn't trying to say anything? Like I looked at his face. It looked like he was saying something. I just thought maybe he's even gay. I don't know. He just came over. He said, I like your fringe. Like, I like your bangs. And I just said, thank you. And then I was like, so see, here's the thing. First off, LA is going to slide in the most craftiest ways, okay? And you ain't really been around a lot. You ain't even been around the Latinos. You don't know how to slide. This is a whole other game. You ain't been exposed to this shit, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, that little shit you were just talking about, that micro conversation, just, oh, nice bangs. Even if he had no intention of spitting game, which I don't believe. This was definitely a million %. Even if he had no intention of spitting game, do you know that conversation could have got everybody in this killed? Did you know that? Did you know that situation could have got everybody killed when my 3 people walked over there? If he'd have had any back talk, they'd have punched his ass the fuck out. Do you know that? And then when he got punched the fuck out, I don't never see Latinos by themselves. See, you don't know shit about this right here. You ain't never gonna see no Latino like solo by himself. That shit's impossible. So they'd have punched his shit out would have started coming out the woodworks. My people would have came out, knives, guns, and it would have been ugly. That's the reality of where you're at right now. You're in a big, violent city, and low-key, blacks and Mexicans don't get along like that. You know what I mean? Like, in my hood, yeah, we have Mexicans we grew up with, but when you're just moving around LA, there's a bit of acrimony between Mexicans and blacks just in general, okay? Read the news. So like, they don't know us and we don't know them. We ain't trying to become friends and shit randomly in the club, okay? Because I'll get them killed out here. Follow my directions, okay? I didn't know it was that serious. What you think I gave you a pep talk before you went to the club? I gave you safety demonstration and shit before you went to the club? You think I'm doing that shit for fun? God damn it, I could have just said, hey, it's a club, they're playing music, have a great time. Nah, gotta give you some safety explanation in this shit. Get killed in here. Anyway, so that's that, right? So check this out. And this is culture. And some things you just cannot change, right? Like you cannot change certain core features of a person. A country person is friendly, is nice, is soft-hearted, and is not suspicious of are you going to steal from me? They're not suspicious of, are you trying to sell me something? They're not suspicious of, is this guy trying to spit game? She literally believes, this is a friendly guy. He gave me a compliment. Why wouldn't I engage him? I'm not going to be rude. That's a country person. A city person, a New Yorker will ignore the f out you. Yeah, it's a New Yorker. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? And they're deeply suspicious of you. Huh? Yeah. Hell, in New York, you could be the same race as somebody else. These are crazy, man. So sure enough, she still can follow the rest. True story. Then eventually, we carry on, we have a good time, and my people get serious. The club is doing what the club does. She just, hanging around, under my arm, and then we start leaving out. And me, the kind of guy I am, I like to always position things where I can keep an eye on things. You dig? So usually, it's most appropriate. You're walking, especially if you're walking to a crowd, you might walk in front and hold your old lady's hand. Even my assistant, I hold her hand, and then I thug my way through the crowd, right? But in some cases, it's better to put her in front. Put your hand on her shoulder, and you kind of look out, and you can just move things out the way, putting your hand in front of her, but you got to keep an eye on her. Because sometimes when you're in the crowd and you have a broad behind you, you're trying to grab booties and do some extra shit. So you keep her in front, so you keep an eye on everything, right? Usually, like in certain situations, I'll strategically decide to do one of those things. So I need to keep an eye on my instincts. All right. So we're maneuvering out, and it's a lot going on. She ends up behind me, right? Which is fine, because all my people are also behind. I got some of my people in front of me, some of my people behind me. We're exiting the club, right? We walking by a group of Latinos, and I'm pretty sure it was like that. The dude that had first went to go make a compliment, went to the restroom. I'm pretty sure this was like that group he was with. So we're walking out, and she's behind me, and it's like 4 of them, and I'm walking like straight past them, right? And these are not like cholos. These are not like real essays. These are like pretty boy Mexicans. Like I went to high school. When I went to high school, we had like 2 categories. You had like pretty boy Mexicans, like that be wearing black shit, J's and shit. Their hair be all gelled up real nice. Be plugging their eyebrows, looking cuter than and getting hoes too in a real way. You did? Be dressed fresh, getting hoes. You got the pretty boy Mexicans, and you got the essay. You hear me? They ain't dressed fresh at all. You hear me? You been pulled them socks all the way up to their knees. They wearing some Dickie shorts, some Cortez. You heard me? They walk in a certain way, they talk in a specific way. They females get down to them. They can beat their girl ass. She ain't switching at all. They can catch a case. Just gonna wait till they get out. It's real shit. Because I used to have a little hyena in East LA. Also, there's this one girl that went to my high school. She was massively thick, Latina, super chola, my boy. And I used to try to holler at her something vicious. She ain't speaking no English. This shit was amazing. I'm like, how the hell you been going to school for 4 years? Your ass don't speak no English. Either you bullshit me or you a dumb kid. So I'm gonna be hollering every day. With me. Her boyfriend was a super cholo. That just had to respect it. But anyway, point is this: I'm walking through 4 pretty boy Mexicans, and I walk past, and they walk past, and then I hear my say something. What? What are you talking to? And she's like, oh, he said something to me. What did he say? Super beautiful. See, like now it's disrespecting me here. See, now it's like you see me with and now you're trying to say some cute shit right here. Now is okay. I see what it is. So I turn around. I was like, which one was it? She's like, no. I was like, which one was it? She's like, it was that one. I was like, good. Now I push this out the way because at this point, I need my thing. Everybody, this shit is getting lit. Everything. Now the evil's out. So it was 40 that passed by. It was this one, right? So it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. And when I'm blowing by, the second dude had set it to where I couldn't hear it, right? But I heard the fly. I push these two out the way like disrespectful. I pull up on this one like, what's up? He's like, what? He's like, what's going on? I was like, oh, bro, you throwing compliments and shit? Like, you giving fly and food and shit out here? I was like, what did you say to my girl? He's like, I just told her she's beautiful. I was like, you beautiful. What's up? Well, you beautiful. Let's do that. And you pretty as, like, you got an issue? He's like, oh, no, I don't have an issue. I was like, nah, you do have an issue. I was like, you absolutely have an issue. He's like, what you trying to say? Well, I'm trying to say, what's up? I was like, look, bro. I was like, we could get it in right here, right now. We shoot this fair one. We could take it outside, shoot this fair one. I'll knock you though. Yeah, and y'all is off. I knock all y'all out. Then my wolves come over. Now it's ugly. Because I'm the nicest there. Now it's ugly. I'm the nicest one there, and I ain't even nice. My wolves come over. Then niggas acting like they don't want fade. I'm like, no, we can shoot this fair. We can do this shit civil in the mud. We could go outside right around this corner through the parking lot. She's a beautiful man. You beautiful than a. I'm gonna make you ugly. Let's get it in. Oh, bro, you talking all this shit? Nah, bro, I'm not talking no shit because you already know what it is. You know what it is. You know, we in LA. You don't be complimenting bitches out here, bro. I wouldn't compliment your nigga if it was your. And I thought she was fine. I would keep my thoughts to myself. But if I had to say something like a G, I would tell you. I'd be like, hey, bro, your old lady look great, bro. Congratulations, because I'm a real one. I was like, what you doing? You know, lost. Let's catch his fade. These didn't want to go outside. Might start grabbing stuff like that. Trying to push these outside. My girls start yelling. They trying to push these outside. We almost got into a little situation in there. They didn't want to throw no hands, so I let them go. So I see you outside around the kill when you push. Then we leave. Now, when we get outside, see, I think you around and get somebody killed. You can't follow directions. I gave you simple directions. She said, well, he said what she just said you're beautiful. I said, thank you. All I said is thank you. I said, yeah, that's fantastic, except that can get everybody killed. That's fantastic, except that can get everybody killed. When we're in your bullshit ass town in Pennsylvania, you let me know what's up out there, right? When we show up in your bullshit ass town, you let me know how things is rocking out there. When you come up in this, I told you how things is rocking, and you ain't abide by what's going on. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. And the emperor told you how to get your ass killed out here. You go around and put everybody at risk. Dumb bitch. And y'all probably listen like, yeah, tell her like that. I did. And I tell you why. Because real shit is an embarrassment and an abomination. Nah, I like my girl like she don't see or hear shit. And secondly, I like mine that can follow directions. And thirdly, my life is line. Because here's the thing. You see, like, you guys, squares might be looking at it like, oh, Clint, you wild. Am I though? Because he's over here, talking greasy to your girl with you right there and you're not doing anything. This is how criminals operate. This is how criminal minds, this is how penitentiary minds operate. They try to do a little thing and see if you let it slide. And then they do a bigger thing and they determine that you're soft and then they rob you. And then they take more from you. That's how criminal minds operate. They nudge a little bit. Surrender your mind to my rest. And if they find that you're weak, they do a little bit more to see if you'll fight back. And if they don't think you'll fight back, then they rob you. They take all your shit. That's how it goes. So yeah, I was like, nah, we ain't playing like that. And from then on, I know I think, but here's the worst part about it. The truth of the matter is, she's a bad person. It wasn't because she was interested in those dudes. It's because she's a country bitch. She's provincial. And she ain't never going to not be able to be a country bitch. Now, maybe if she was like a smart country bitch, that's like, oh, I understand what you're describing, cultural dynamics that are radically different than where I come from. Maybe an intelligent one could have understood it, but she's provincial. You know? She think everything is sweet. I was like, nah, shorty, nah, absolutely. You don't have the foggiest idea. I was like, I'm telling you, we're in a place where literally there are black people here that will see a Latino and do some violent shit just because he's Latino. And oppositely, there are Latinos here who will see a black guy and do some violent shit to him just because he's black. There is currently a black and brown war going on in Los Angeles. This is what I'm telling you. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying black people are racist or I'm not saying Latinos are racist. I'm saying that there's a gang war going on between blacks and Latinos right now, and you can see it on the news, and you don't need to be here aggravating shit, bitch. And even if we were all the same ethnicity, it would be the same program. Even if we were all Latinos, it would be all black, it would be the same program. Mind your manners. And I say that to say this. You have to, I had that conversation with her, she couldn't make adjustments. People like that, they can't make adjustments. And this is often a function of intellect and IQ. You see, people with higher IQ, they can observe the world and adapt. People with lower IQ, especially with the nature of inexperience, they don't know how to observe the world and adapt. You see, like me, I always try to be sharp and be gamed up. I used to have a super bad chick looking East Coast, boy. Yeah, and you from LA, you know East LA is Latino, gangster, central. You don't really need to just be in there if you're black, especially at night. And Shorty ain't had no wheels. I had to go pick her up in the middle of the night. She was finer than, had a little blonde bob and short hair, and she was like nice and curvy, pretty thing, large green eyes. Man, she was pure flame, bro. I had to go pick her up with a clapper on my lap, ready to kill some shit. Yeah, because I know. So see me pull up and just don't like the fact that I'm there, especially not carting off one of the baddest hoes in their barrio. Like, is this what they call it? Mayate. Is this Mayate? You heard Mayate coming to get up one of the idols. Yeah, they don't like that shit. You gotta be paying attention out here. Anyway, Dr. Derek, she writes, can you put a course on when to pop off some confetti, like when people talk to your girl? You know, honestly, it's not about them talking to your girl. You're just supposed to handle that. What that really was about, to be honest with you, was the fact that, like, I got all my people with him, he got all his people with him, and, you know, like, cats just keep taking shots. Like, when I'm right there, it's like, it was the fact that you're trying to disrespect me. Like, you're trying to go out of your way to disrespect me. Like, I don't know if you're trying to establish, like, some dominance, or, like, you think I'm a hoe or something. Like, I don't know what you're thinking, but, like, I gotta let you know what it is out here. It wasn't just like, honestly, if a cat like try to talk to my girl, I'm the kind of, like, he does it in front of my face, I'm gonna sit back and see what he got. Yeah, like, first spit that game. And I just want to see my go like deaf, dumb, and blind on him, you dig? I want to see her stonewall his ass. So I'm gonna let him spit the game. But it was the fact that the first time I was in the bathroom, like, you try to sneak up on my, like, come on, bruh. The second time I walked past you and you try to throw a slick shot at the, but you're not doing it in front of my face. It's like you're being real weird and crafty. Like, I could respect it if you came at the draw, like, in front of my face. But Cass was like throwing slick shots. I was like, okay, like, y'all want to play passive aggressive? Let's just play aggressive. So, you know, I didn't like the way that was evolving. You know, you never know how things are going to devolve. And so me, I always say, if it got to pop off, I'm going to pop it off. I ain't going to wait for you to pop it off. No, I'm going to pop it off. If it got to escalate, I ain't going to wait for you to escalate. I'm going to make it turn up. Man, these bras out here, bro. It is something sad. They think things are a game. They really do. They really do. And that was a cultural difference. You know, some things she may consider normal and acceptable in her household or in culture she was raised in, whereas in your household, in your culture, it's not normal and it's not acceptable. It's disrespectful. And those are conversations that you have to have, but some people can adjust, some people cannot adjust, some people will adjust. Some women will say they will, but they don't. And she literally out her mouth said, yeah, for sure, I understand. And in her mouth, in her mind, there was still this country ass software of someone's nice to me. And that's not going anywhere. You cannot change that. That's who she actually is. You just have to accept it. You can't get mad at her. So generally, if you know it's something that can't change, you just need to accept it. There's no need to be aggressive. In other cases, you just seek understanding, which is to say, engage her, engage her in Socratic questioning, ask her, you know, hey, what outcome did you expect when you did what you did, or when you said what you said? What outcome did you expect? Or, hey, what did you think would happen if this? So those are some questions to drive her thinking. In this case that I described, it's not even worth it. You did. Because if she didn't get it when the first situation occurred, she's not going to get it when the first situation occurs. And I went out to the kid came up and started talking about, oh, I like your bangs. And she was like, oh, thanks. And then 3 of my wolves pulled up over there and you know, had some words with him and escorted her ass away. over deeper into our section, she should have figured out, like, why were they watching me? Those three guys that motherfuckers. Why did they escort me away? Why does it matter? Like, she should have been trying to process all of that. Not realizing, like, yeah, we're watching because we're low-key in a war zone, huh? We're low-key in a goddamn war zone. That's why she's out here cognizant and cautious. But she ain't picked it up on that. So she ain't gonna learn. She used to take that fight, though, I'll tell you that. She used to take it however you like too, which was nice. Anyways, when you have these kind of conversations where you're trying to establish, figure out what her values have been and establish your values and your law and say, hey, this is the way we gotta rock. Are you in or are you not? It's also important to figure out in that process, assess, like, is she having a true understanding? Is she sympathizing and empathizing with what I'm saying? And one thing that became very clear is that this girl was not sympathizing and empathizing with what I was saying. When I was telling her, hey, what you're doing can get other people in here incarcerated, killed, or injured. What you're doing, you're failing to do. She was not empathizing with that. Because here's the truth. She's never been in a situation where, you know, like, some small, insignificant thing happened, and then 20 people started fighting at once. Like, 20 people. She's never seen that in real life. Like, that's a movie to her. That's live. Yeah, I've seen that many times. In fact, I popped that off. Yeah, I started that before. Yeah. Yeah, to me, like you could be walking by, bump shoulders with somebody, turn back, and you don't like the look on his face. Now 20 people are fighting. Now 20 people are fighting to the death. Let somebody break it up or somebody start busting. Yeah, I've seen that. She couldn't empathize with her with that because that wasn't a real concept to her. She didn't realize that everybody in there with me is down, and them Latino boys, they're down too. She didn't comprehend that, like, you know, a little bit of this can turn into a lot of this because she never seen that before.
We talked about Zion a lot. Friend of the show, Zion. Please don't sit up on it. If you do, come sit on the couch. To be brotherly, don't give me the double grip. You think Zion's weight issues are officially behind him? Everything is not a positive, multiple things, man. The double grip. That's the double grip. We all stopped and looked. We looked up like, the double grip, but it didn't register. The double grip. Because then he did it. I was like, the double grip. Because I only know double grip to be on the shoulder. That's not that shoulder. So I understood what you're saying. But the double grip. Yeah. The double shoulder grip. That's Will. Double shoulder grip, not this grip, this grip. Whoa. Now that's possible.
Yo, it's getting crazy. It's getting crazy.
You're talking about not like this, like this. You gotta pick it up. We only got a couple days left, Black.
Damn,
yeah. You gotta pull it back.
Sorry, relax.
Direct deposit only a week and a half. I'm getting antsy. The means and the nightmares. Means, yeah. But do y'all think Zion's weight issues are officially behind him? I need to do the thing. There it is.
Damn, Joe.
But in all seriousness, do y'all think Zion Williamson's weight issues are behind him?
No. No, I mean, not in a negative way. Just no. This is his NBA chance, right? You know, he's gonna he's fighting himself. Like, there's no opponent that's gonna be more detrimental to his career than himself. So, you know, every year he has to come into training camp at a certain weight, knowing that, you know, he's gonna gain during the season. And if he do gain during the season, he has to remember how he got down here so he can get back to what feels comfortable. And I know with how he plays, people think he needs to be stronger. But if you look at him in high school and that the first couple months of Duke before, you know, he got out, he got hurt, he was you're stronger than anybody who's trying to jump with you in this area, right? So whoever's telling you that you need to, like, you lose muscle, because it's all muscle. It's not like we're looking at him, he looks like he has 20% body fat. He's just muscle weighs more than, fat. So his muscle mass is just really heavy. So he's gonna have to really cut a lot of muscle.
But he's bottom. He's bottom. He's bottom. Yeah, he's like Yao and all those big guys. Tree trunk. It's unfortunate that that's his genetic makeup because, like you said, he's gonna struggle with the weight influxing and decreasing and all that kind of stuff. And the nutrition is one thing, water, weight, and all that kind of stuff. But it's like you said, catching a routine that when you see that it's going up, and you might have cheated a couple days on eating this, and you know your shit will go up when you cheat, you gotta have a regimen ready to get it down. And you can't take 2 weeks to do it. Like, it's gotta be a 2-3 day thing. And I think Zion needs to wait for this opportunity to show everybody what he looks like at this weight, where he can improve. How many games he played? He 27?
He played 20 of 57 games.
But the 27 that he's averaging.
Oh, the last 10 games.
The last 10 games. That's crazy. He's sending a message.
If I'm him, like, wouldn't you move him? Like, so he can go somewhere else? I mean, if you're the company, are you gonna move him?
Yes.
We think it's great as a company. Yeah, because I mean, what's the future here though? You gotta think like the business. I understand. The businessman. Right. You're gonna have a project. How long is it gonna?
No. What have you done when you had him?
Right.
And how long have you?
So it's kind of like the Luka situation, right? Like, there's a difference between success on the record and success in my pocket.
Right.
Very true.
And you think that he's been successful?
So yeah, them jerseys is selling. That goes to my pocket. That's what I'm saying. And it's in New Orleans. So it's not like this market is like
OKC market.
Yeah. Like you can like get something for him for the draft and like let this youngin go somewhere where he can really develop, like the Luka situation. Luka's like Dallas gave up Luka. It's actually a better situation for Luka. He's around Dallas. So Lakers is like hell yeah. Right. That's like do him a favor. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Because Dallas is bigger than New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans ain't got no. What I'm saying is, as the business of it, this is my money maker.
So you just got rid of Brandon Ingram.
Right, he's my money maker.
I get it. He's all I got.
He's my best player.
I get it. But right now he's 27 a game after 10
He's my
games.
best player. Brandon Ingram is my most consistent player, but he is not Zion to the world.
Brandon's gone though.
Right? So if I have to trade one of them, I'm gonna trade the one Brandon Ingram. I can't trade his name. Zion is his brand.
He's a brand, yeah. And he started it. But they just did it.
What I'm saying is he's Jordan.
What's the difference?
Stupid.
So what's the difference?
Everybody ain't stupid.
I get what you're saying. He's saying the big 25 max that Zion could get that they can't afford, why would you keep that on your books knowing you can't afford it?
Well, they got that 5-year, $197 million extension, but not guaranteed. He got all those weight clauses in there where he's got to have the
like, are we gonna win, or are we just gonna keep going through this same motion, right?
But do you care? I think what you're saying, do you care about winning if he's putting people in the seats and he's
making money?
Let's say you're making $50 million a year on him.
Just having.
And if you trade him and bring it back, you lose everything that you would have, and now you're making 10. But then they should move the team. What I'm saying is now you're making 10, but you're winning. Do you really care? Like, is it like
you lost money?
Like I say they always lose the money. I said 10 years, you win 5 championships and make $200 million. In them 10 years, you win 5 championships and you profit $2 million or $200 million. Or you win no ring and you make 5 million. But it depends on the market though. But what I'm saying is they picked the 0 ring. I mean, yeah, business is
because that's you need a return on your investment.
But okay, but also if you are winning, you will get your return on your investment. Winning does. Winning in the longer run, in the longer run, if I win 5 championships and I got 20 million, you know what them 5 championships are gonna do for the rest of the franchise? For the rest of the I'm already know that the winning franchise. So the money is gonna come. I might not be here, but the money is gonna come because my value's gonna be higher because of it. It's still economics. That's in theory. If you ask when was the last time
sit there for the rest of his career. As an owner, I'll make my money back just having him because we don't have another name that can bring people to even want to see us play. We need him.
But if they were to win, but Chicago, they'll never lose money because Chicago Bulls. Because of winning, right? So
it's winning too, man. It's the knocking of the city. You can't change the economics of the city itself.
But he helped the economics change.
New York doesn't need to win. They're gonna pop.
Right.
Lakers,
But what he's saying,
Clippers,
big cities don't need.
they don't need to win shit because of the city itself. Like, let's say Wemby in Spurs, right?
Okay.
Wemby can be an MVP 5 times in a row. Those front row seats can only go at a certain price because of the economy there. Wemby can come here, and he can have 61 games. That shit can go 2,000 to 25,000.
Easy.
I mean, we're seeing it with
People
Luka
are
right
gonna
now.
pay.
Yeah, Luka, change.
So that's the difference. There's only certain markets can't do much of nothing. So if you have a Zion and he got the seats at 2,000 while losing,
We never had 2,000.
we didn't have 2,000 seats. You bring in winning.
CP there, yes, they did. When CP and him was
With the Warriors, maybe close to it.
There's nothing you can do until you can't change the price of it. It's just like a house in Atlanta, right? You can't. I don't give a fuck how many people bought it.
But court sides are way higher than they were before they started winning championships.
I know, but what I'm saying.
So it's like if the Lakers come into play the Milwaukee Bucks the Lakers, let's say KD and them, whoever, the ticket prices are way higher. Now because of their
It's the person who's coming.
Yeah, it's the person, the people who's coming to see. If it changed back when the Wizards come in, the Lakers come and go high, the Wizards come and go low. That's the difference. So the value is not in the team.
But the value is still
Now think about like Lakers come to Milwaukee and those teams go from 2005, right? Giannis comes to the Lakers, those are from 5 to 15.
Easy.
Same 2 teams playing.
So you're bringing more value into a city that's already got value.
So that's the difference. So when you have a guy like Ja Morant, when you have a guy like Vince Carter, Allen, even if he was in a horrible city, LaMelo Ball, it's hard to get off that player because I don't need to win with him.
Yeah, but the Mavs might have did that they might have ulterior motive.
Yeah, we don't know what's in it.
What's solely on that?
All the stuff they got going on behind the scenes.
But what I'm saying is I can't afford this. We can't afford to not have a superstar. We're not. You know what I mean? When you talk about
That answers your question about why Dallas did it, because they had to. They can bank on Kyrie to be the other guy. You're not gonna call him a superstar. He's a star. We got 2 stars. We can get off this star and still have a chance.
But we can't. There's no telling if Kyrie's gonna stay though. Like,
But you can't bank on what Dallas did because there's nobody in the world that thought that was a good trade besides them. That's why they're still talking about it.
100%.
People ask, hey, are you going to get rid of Ja Morant? Hell no.
Why would we do that?
Fuck, I've had this team for how many years?
Never had a player like this.
My team been to the playoffs how many years? And he makes more for us than all them teams combined. I can't trade that.
So let me.
But can you afford it? Oh, go ahead.
Now, to give you just this context. So in 2023, Pelicans were worth $2.5 billion. Now fast forward February 2025, they're worth $3.3 billion. So that franchise has increased $800 million in value anyway, just with having a player like Zion on that roster.
You know what's impressive? The Zion thing and the reason you just can't get rid of him. There's a report, right, last week that he became the 3rd fastest player to 5,000. The youngest. Active player. Look at LeBron and then him, and he's missed half his career. Just like understand, he's missed half his career due to injury, and is the 3rd.
So so if you know all that, are you going to build around him though? Like this guy is. Are they going to be able to bring? Are they going to be able to bring guys to the team? I know. I understand that.
consider his trajectory to be similar to Joel Embiid's right now?
Yes.
That's why I asked that question.
This is what.
That's a good. It's a good. You're going in a good direction.
Because I'm
like,
trying to
If we say we see this in the details now, is he gonna become this guy who has this talent that we know is this good, can't hold it together? Is he gonna be that guy?
Yeah, now, if he is,
How old is he?
24.
25 in July.
He's young as hell. No, he's young. But I'm just saying, the way they're talking about guys like, you know, the way we talk about Tatum, the way we talk about these guys that's in that mix already, that's already hitting this level, it's like, well, what is New Orleans going to do to be able to get him in that conversation?
Right.
Yeah, he's going to be able to get his numbers. I'm not sure about that, but you know how we're already talking about these other players. In a minute, we're going to be talking about them just like that. Then what?
Yeah.
But we don't know. Right now, he's only 24.
But who's going to come to New Orleans?
No, but that's just
Like
the
they-
city.
like-
That's the
like-
city's problem.
No, but we're critical of players similar to him that can't get it done on teams like even AD. AD left New Orleans because he got tired of not being able to get it done.
So it's looking like a thing.
And it's looking like a thing. So then he got DeMarcus Kemp down there, and then he had Rondo, and it's like we New Orleans. It's like being the Cleveland Browns.
But that's what I'm
Man, we the Cleveland Browns.
That's what I'm saying.
There's too much we can do.
There's only, so if I have to, we are in Cleveland, right? No. You're dead ass.
It's just that.
So it's either, as a business, it's you either gotta have a superstar that people are gonna come out and see, or you gotta have a winning team to the point where you're looking like OKC.
Yeah.
Now OKC can fill up that arena, right? With winning. Kevin Durant did this by himself. Kevin Durant jersey outsold that whole team combined. When he left, and Russell was out, Russell's jersey outsold. Like, you know what I mean? So what they have to do as a team to take away, to bring in the same thing one person brings in. So if you're New Orleans itself, what's your chances of finding for him? No, not for him. Because at 24, you're going to say, all right, he's going to have the same thing as Joel Embiid. Cool. I don't want to get rid of him now. Because then I'm going to miss out on my motherfucking MVP.
Okay, no.
You know what I mean?
That's fine.
I might miss out on the scoring title. I want that in this city.
Right.
Okay.
I don't want to give it to you, and then you benefit, and Zion goes to goddamn New York, and now he's finals MVP, and he gets all this shit. I look dumb in the motherfucker.
No, that's fine.
So I'm going to hold on to him where...
But how he gonna get MVP? But how he gonna get MVP with no team? Cause his team ain't even close to them Joel Embiid's team.
So we talked about last year, 27 points a game in 10 games. The Pelicans 14-43, I believe, what the worst record in the West right now? Tied for the worst record in the West. But per our conversation yesterday, are Zion's points easier this year because the Pels are bad, or harder in your opinion, Jim?
Easier or harder?
Easier to get that 27 or harder to get that 27?
Hey, man, we've watched him destroy at every level. When he's healthy, no one physically can keep up with him. So, with stars, without stars, he can't guard him, right? So, the only thing that's guarding him is himself. So, obviously, you put more stars around him, like, his 20 becomes easy because he doesn't have to go as hard. It's harder now because now he's focused on, but he got shots, but he gets better the healthier he gets.
He would look great in purple and gold. I think those are two colors that,
No,
from a color scheme standpoint.
so that's what I'm leading at too. I'm just saying, like,
I'm just saying, I wasn't talking about basketball. I'm just
there's all in there like about players. That's why we're going at it. Does New Orleans have what it takes to even keep this, or do we,
So we asked the chat, should the Pelicans trade Zion? 64% said yes. Very intelligent chat. You guys are doing great work today.
Like, I mean, as a Lakers fan,
You got Brewing, you got Gabe Alex Lynn,
whatever you want, man. You want some fancy draft?
5 second round pick. We can give you whatever you want. You want a building around this bitch? I give you a building around you. You gonna give me Zion? You gonna give me goddamn LaMelo Ball? Whatever you feel about those guys, like, just make me all.
It's some players. Okay, cool. All right. It's reminiscent of the situation. So you look at, if you do put a couple pieces around